This is the Howard's Way podcast from Antique Dust.
Stories so far. Tom has cashed in life savings and redundancy check to buy into the Mermaid Yard, which is on its uppers yacht yard on the Tarrant coast. Very delightful. Jan's not very happy and has taken a full-time job with Ken Master that's sniffing around. Abby has made a massive splash in Tarrant Society where she fell threw herself off the harbour and she can't swim. Leo saves the day. So, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Rob.
And together we are Antique Dust.
Woo!
Yeah,
Yay.
and we are dusting down the gorgeous, gorgeous yachty drama that is Howard's Way. So, this episode first aired on the 22nd of September at 8 o'clock in 1985. Oh my God, I know.
Wow.
Now, I have to carry a serious thing on this episode.
Okay.
It is showing its age with a few little morally bits.
Okay, go for it.
So, the episode starts. I say we'll get to the morals later on in the podcast, so please listen on, listeners.
Okay, you're going to keep us in suspense.
I'm going to keep you in suspense.
Oh, okay.
So, episode starts with a recap. We don't normally do recaps.
We don't. And I noticed that was a little bit of a change, but then we did have such a massive cliffhanger.
We had a massive cliffhanger last episode.
We had to have the resolution.
With
got a bit
Abby! And then Splosh.
Sploosh.
So we have the Abby and Splosh.
Yes.
And then we have someone who's looking a little bit chunkier than Leo diving in off the harbour.
Yeah. I wondered if it was sort of like an episode of, The Incredible Hulk when he was under stress and he would suddenly develop muscles and put on about 6 stone. And Leo seemed to do that for some reason.
Yeah.
He was certainly much musclier and chunkier when he dived into the water.
I know, and he dived into the water in a completely different direction to where Abby had fallen. But then again, we do realise when Abby's been dragged out, apparently.
Nowhere near where she jumped in. So there must have been a heck of a rip tide or whatever. Undertow.
So Leo saves the day, and he takes his jacket off first because you wouldn't want to damage that lovely jacket of his with his little C&D badge.
Yeah, and it's got to go for a few more series, so we've got to look after that.
Well, at least till series 3, that's when he becomes a bit of a yuppie.
Okay, so he's still a bit of an eco-warrior, despite driving a smelly old motorcycle and working in a petrol station.
Yes, his carbon footprint.
In 1985, we'd never heard the term carbon footprint.
Yeah, so saves the day, takes Abby back to the homestead, the gorgeous, gorgeous house. And
he takes her back to the
Howard
palatial
household.
Howard house.
Where apparently the only warmest room in the house is the kitchen with an Arga.
Yeah, they couldn't afford to pay the central heating.
Well, he has ploughed all his money. Tom has ploughed all of his money into the Mermaid Yard. Yeah. I know.
And the Arga was lit.
I know.
It had actual flame
Pebble
in it.
Mill must have had fire wardens
there was
on
fire
standby.
warden with a bucket of salt or sand just on the off chance.
It did not look very warm though, in fairness. So we had an Arga at our holiday home, and so we didn't open the door like that. To see a naked flame.
No, I was surprised at that. I've never had an Arga or a holiday home. Come to that,
so, you've not lived, sweetie.
I know. But I didn't think you would sort of get a kind of like a flickering.
No, or you
flame.
sometimes see it with the oil ones when you've got like sort of the ignition light where you've got a little flame coming in there.
Right.
But I've never really seen one where you open it up, and because I think you sometimes do with a Rayburn or something like that, but not really. But anyway,
I shall bow down to your superior aga knowledge.
yes. So anyway, at least there was some action happening in the kitchen, and then we slip over to Tom walking around the mermaid yard
Proprietorially.
Yes, well,
interfering with the lads, apparently.
Yeah, well, Bill's yes, Davy in particular, the young Asian apprentice. So Tom is obviously stretching his management and partnership muscles into the mermaid yard and is looking around and seeing what people are doing. And it doesn't actually seem a great deal.
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's not a hive of activity, is it?
No, they do seem to have a lot of people doing nothing, and it does seem a little bit peculiar. But then I suppose it doesn't look that peculiar because he's just sort of invested $100,000 into the business, which is a shitload of money. Oh, sorry, apologies, listeners.
It's an awful
lot of money. It's a lot of frocks from the future Jan boutique. But they just don't seem to do a great deal. Then obviously he's aware of this, so he's trying to find out money, and he's sort of looking at the boats and then fingering some scrap metal. So that's his first.
Yeah, I thought it was a DIY build your own boat kit at first when he was looking at it, but apparently it was just a pile of old scrap.
Yes. Yeah, it was just like mournfully. So, we can get a little bit of money for this. And then he starts prodding around in the bank to do something with the bank where it's all sort of, it's a bit of a blank canvas. But yeah, he's stretching his muscles. Bill, who is the main sort of supervisor there,
he's Jack's number two.
He's Jack's number two, and we meet them in the pub and Jack sort of I think foreshadowing, because he eyes up this faux sailor person with a captain's hat at the end of the bar.
And he's very sniffy about that
Poor
chap.
But in fairness, that's the
bread and butter.
Because the ones that do it for weekends, they're not going to be that. Well, they'll probably be demanding, but they've got the money to buy a yacht on the coast for the weekend, and that's obviously your client base, and it's a little bit. I don't know. It's very old school values, etc. So anyway, Bill sort of prizes him away from the bar. The measures they were having, and they're drinking brandy, which looked like half a pint of brandy in a little thimble of brandy glass. It's just
they're very generous with their measures.
Free pouring, obviously, in the 80s.
Sailor.
Yeah. So so it's all a bit.
Probably more generous than Lynn is at the yacht club, but we'll get onto that in a minute.
Lynn is not a very good barmaid. Obviously, the actress Tracy Charles that plays Lynn had obviously not actually had to do any work behind the bar because she was obviously very, very pretty.
Yeah. Well, she certainly doesn't know how to wipe down a table, I'll say that much.
Or clean a glass.
Clean a glass, yes. She was sort of like dipping it in some kind of...
Well, it was one of those...
but there was no water.
There was no water.
There was no water. You had the sound effect, but there was no water.
It was Leo at the side.
Yeah, anyway. I feel we've skipped ahead.
Yeah, we've skipped ahead a little bit too much. So we have the pub scene, and then we have sort of Leo dropping Abby off at the palatial mansion. Well, no, it's actually not a mansion. It's a very lovely country house, and Abby sort of walks away, and Leo's like, "Oh, okay, fair enough." And then she comes back and gives him a little kiss on the cheek, which I thought was really sweet.
I thought that was sweet. That warmed my cynical old heart.
Yeah, because Abby is just a little bit morose, but then again, she has just tried to commit suicide.
Yes. For reasons that are as yet unspecified.
I know. So, and then she goes in and sort of bumps into Polly, sort of regaling.
She's entertaining a gentleman caller
in the palatial living room, and Abby tries to sneak in and then walks into the umbrella stand, which goes clattering all over the very lovely big hall. So Polly comes out and says, "Darling, what are you wearing?" And
she's wearing an old sailor's jumper and a pair of slacks or jeans that don't quite.
And Abby's like, "Oh no, don't talk to me, don't talk to me," rather than say, "Oh, I was at Leo's."
I fell in the water.
I fell in the water, and then so she eyes into the living room, and all we see is a sort of a groin shot of a chap in the living room. We don't actually see the chap that Polly was entertaining because we've still not met.
We've not met Gerald yet.
We've not met Gerald, sort of Polly's husband.
When does Gerald? I thought it was this episode, but it's not.
I think what's really interesting about the series is the characters are gradually introduced, so we get to know one of the characters. But I think nowadays they just shove everyone together and they make you work for it. But now they're easing everybody in, which I think is really quite. It was quite nice. I think this episode, it felt a bit of a filler episode, I think.
Okay.
I mean, we have a few snippets where people are working, and they're plot devising going forward.
What we do have is Tom getting to know the yard. We've got Jan,
who's
getting more involved with her new job, doing some unspecified things involving bits of old boat.
She's been tasked with stocking the sort of yachty shop for the weekend yachters and the weekend boaters, and so she's had to go down to Southampton and to investigate to see what the suppliers are. But you can actually see the journey with Jan, because she's gone from sort of floaty blouses and pattern blouses, and as the episode goes along, she's going a little bit more tailored.
Yes, so the shoulders are getting a little bit wider.
The power dressing.
Yes.
And I think they've done really well, although the first blouse we see, it needed a big pressing. They pressed the front but not the back. It was very, very creased at the back.
Yeah, but she's been sitting. She's been
slouched over a word processor looking for the H.
Yeah. Yeah. So that can be forgiven.
So we don't have much of Ken in this episode. We have no Dawn.
We have no Dawn. We have a little bit of Ken, essentially giving Jan her instructions and a reason for her relationship with Tom to deteriorate further as she's off to Southampton and then she's off down to London, and Tom's not very happy.
No, she phones up. She said, "Oh, I'll phone Mother, and Mother can do dinner." And then she sends Leo down to the boatyard to go and speak to Tom to say that Kate, sort of grandmother, will be doing sort of the meal in the evening, and Leo looks like he was just trying to build a relationship with his dad a little bit. I mean, and then his dad just walks away. But I suppose
he looks disappointed.
He looks a bit disappointed. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't really know what many 17-year-olds would. Oh no, he's 18, isn't he? He's meant to be 18, 19 in this. So I really, it's sort of a little bit immature, because I think most of them will be doing their own thing anyway. They'll do the task and say, no. But then again, I don't know why Jan didn't actually phone the mermaid yard and say, Kate's doing dinner.
Of course, today she would have just sent a WhatsApp.
Yeah, or yes, in the Howard family WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
So it looks as though Leo knows Davy.
They probably went to school together.
Yeah, I mean, so you can see that there's a little bit that they know themselves, a little bit of dialogue, and also we see a bit of institutionalized racism.
Well, it's not institutionalized racism; it's very personal, individual racism.
Yeah, so I don't know where you're from. So, and Davey sort of holds his own because they've got these burly sort of boaters that are work shy, and they work to rule with regards to the unions and everything, and also drinking beer in your lunch hour from a tin.
That was a thing back then. That was a thing. Yeah. I mean, I told you this story when I went to work on one of my first jobs. This would have been the 90s, so things had moved on a little bit. But I used to hear the stories about people going off to the pub at lunchtime and being too drunk to do any work in the afternoon. And that was a local authority.
Oh, gosh. I mean, so when I was an estate agent in the city, I mean, obviously we'd take out clients' late lunches, which we never went back in the afternoon, where we got them absolutely trolleyed and they signed a deal. That was par for the course. My expense account was very big, but then again, so were my commissions. But I do remember going to, because when we lived in London, I used to go to London with grandfather, because I used to live with my grandparents. Grandfather was a bank manager, and so we used to go to Soho where I had Coke in a bottle with a paper straw, which you had to drink quickly, otherwise the paper straw would just collapse.
It would dissolve.
And my grandfather would have a couple of tankards of bitter, those dimpled pint pots.
Yes, the traditional pint pot.
And then go back to work. I used to love that, because I used to go and play with those calculators with the paper that came out of it, and I always remember I used up all the paper because I just like the noise it made.
Oh,
little 4-year-old Johnny
planning out his career in finance.
Oh dear, no. So that moves on. Davey sort of wants to finish his work and stands up for himself. No, I just want to finish off my job, the task in hand, before I have a break, and blah 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 blah. And also, Davey seems to say, we don't see this, but it's talked about off camera. On camera, that Davey's pointed out to Tom that, Tom's asked some questions and Davey's answered them, and then that's been fed back to the lads, and the lads aren't liking change.
No.
It's a yard that doesn't like change, but it doesn't actually like working by the looks of things.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit. There's sort of the first demark thing there was the element of racism. I didn't like. Second one was the drinking that was like in the workforce. You can understand if you're wine dining clients and you're selling stuff, but when you're in charge of heavy duty machinery and you're having a couple of tins of beer for your lunchtime, that's a little bit worrying.
Yes, but I think I'm not sure what's concerning you about that particularly. Either of those things, neither of them are right. Neither of them are nice. However, did they reflect how things were?
It probably
back
did
then?
reflect what things were like at the time, possibly. However, what I quite like about Howard's Way, it is quite timeless in some of the themes that run through it. However, on this episode, it did jar a little bit, because you're
kind of sounding that, that wouldn't happen now, but I'm not so sure about that, actually.
Really? Well, I don't think a workforce that are going in dealing with heavy machinery takes in their packed lunch, their range of Tupperware, and their double-decker and a couple of tins of beer.
But if you're suggesting that we've managed to obliterate
racism and sexism,
then I would suggest that you're living in a fantasy world.
Oh, and I can understand it probably still does go on, but not unless it's the whole theme of the show sort of thing. But anyway, we'll moving.
Yeah, I think you should, because I think you're moving into territory where you're demonstrating the how remote and removed you are from.
We do live in Cheshire,
from reality,
in the leafy ideal, even though we're currently medium to high risk. So, and then we go on to the next point where we're all seated around the Howard clan dinner table, where Kate seems to have cooked up this delicious banquet of a Chinese meal.
I find that really quite interesting. That obviously one shouldn't make assumptions about the older generation, but Kate cooking up spare ribs and a variety of Oriental. It was just like Mrs. Overall's onion bhajis. Really, it was just.
I think it would have probably made it a little bit easier where she'd come out the bookies and straight into the Chinese restaurants.
Yeah. I mean, if there'd been a pile of foil dishes on the counter
off camera,
and a half drunk bottle of gin or something, then I could have. I could have gone with that.
You could have really bought into that.
Yeah.
Lynn, unfortunately, she's eaten already because she's off out at 7 o'clock, which that wrangled Tom a little bit because he likes family meal times, and But I thought he was very gentlemanly. He brought the seat out for Kate to sit down.
Yeah,
Which is
I mean,
very
of course, this is Jan coming home late from her
job.
Which is a new thing in the Howard household.
And
Jan not being there to cater to the family.
No, and yeah, it just felt that I really liked the whole family time, because I remember, because I obviously when my mother remarried and then everything went a bit Pete Tong with that when we moved up to Cheshire. I used to go around to my best friend Mark's house, and Mark's house was very much like the Howard family. They were all very sort of family orientated. They all sat around. So his dad worked as a very senior executive for IBM, and I was invited round for tea, and I was pretty much moved into their house. Pretty much, I was there all the time. And sitting around the table, it was always very nice. Everyone had there was a conversation. Everyone was listened to, and it was a conversation. It was just very nice. I always felt it was very elegant, because they both had little glasses of wine at dinner time, even midweek. It wasn't like a special occasion. It wasn't like Easter when the Blue Nun came out or the Black Tower. It was sort of a glass of wine.
How very French.
I know. Well, because they used to go to France, you see, and then
well, there you go then.
I used to go to France a lot, and although it wasn't très élégant, they had these boxes of wine. I'd never come across boxes of wine before. You know, the ones with the tap on. And I always felt I was always fascinated with that, because they had this big double fridge which opened up, and there was always sort of a couple of boxes of wine with a tap
Wine on tap.
Wine on the tap.
Yeah. Nowadays we call that alcoholism.
They didn't get through the entire box in an evening.
Oh, lightweight. Not like us, eh?
No, we're seasoned. We're seasoned drinkers. But it was always very nice, because then in between the courses, they used to have a conversation. Then they used to have a conversation in French, which was always. I always really enjoyed that. It just felt very, very good. So I always studied up in my Tricolore book, where everyone goes to J'habite. What is it? J'habite La Rochelle. There was always some sort of customs official, be it sort of discovering someone with something naughty in the suitcase or something.
Like a box of wine.
Like a box of wine that's smuggled in on the boat. But yeah, so that was always...
It wasn't the wine, it was the box that they objected to.
It was a box. There was a box of something. Some junior Dispril. One packet too many. But that did really hark back, because I think that sort of family values sort of thing was really nice. However, what I didn't like was that Tom, although the character Tom was very snooty, because when Kate offers to do dinner tomorrow, and Jan said, "Oh yes, that'd be lovely, because so I'm going to be late again," and Tom was just like, "Oh no, you don't need to," and then Jan interrupts, and then he realised it was suddenly dawning on him that Jan is now working.
Yeah,
and
there was there was a bit of a double standard thing going on there, wasn't there?
Yeah,
that, Tom has created all of this chaos and drama and gone his own way, and then suddenly, oh, Jan's working. That's not right.
Yeah,
I did think there was there. Yeah, I think a doubles. There was something a bit not quite.
That didn't
nice
sit well
that.
because the character of Tom is quite.
So we're
quite
getting to
inclusive
see a side of Tom that maybe we haven't really seen before.
No, beforehand it was a little bit sort of, well, he's following his dream and everything, but then he's following his dream.
Yeah.
And
But Jan's not allowed to follow her dream. Her dream has to be confined to the kitchen.
Well, her dream was basically running a family, and
yeah, but she's moved on.
But Kate's encouraged her to take this full-time job. But even now, say further on in this episode, Kate's just thinking, maybe I've given you the wrong idea, because Jan's actually really enjoying the job, and she's enjoying the challenge of it. She's bought some nice glossy brochures,
and she's found something that she's actually good at.
Yes, she enjoys, and I think that's great, and that is really, really good. And Lynn is obviously using all her wiles and everything at the yacht club. She's got a boy sniffing around at the bar. So Leo leaves the house after the dinner after Jan and Tom are having a huge row. But again, he was just like, the sensitive Leo, and he'd slammed the door, and Jan said, well, he's punctuating that with regards to his unhappiness at us rowing. I mean, in fairness, it's 1819. I don't think it really could give a toss, really. I mean, obviously, it's a bit upset that there's disharmony in the household.
Obviously, you're just projecting yourself onto Leo. That if it had been you, you'd probably have been, I don't know what you would have been doing, but I don't even want to think about what you would have been doing. But Leo's a sensitive soul.
Yeah, he is a sensitive
clearly
soul.
He is deeply affected by the disintegration of his parents' marriage.
Yes. So,
and just because you can't empathise with them doesn't mean that the rest of us can't.
No, I mean, I think it's a little, it's a plot device, and I get that. And so Leo goes over to the yacht club, has a glass of orange juice, and then it's quite good because he ends up being a third wheel, which saves Lynn from sort of the bar person that's invited them all back for a bottle of champagne so they can down it at home, which I think is quite that was quite nice, and saves Lynn from that sort of situation.
A fate worse than death.
Yeah, having to drink half a bottle of champagne rather than a third of a bottle of champagne, and but also we forgot the scene as well where Polly drops in on Jan asking sort of. Leo could ask.
Because after Abby's unfortunate incident in the water, she's not really been talking very much to Polly at all, and Polly's just consumed with curiosity.
Well, I mean, because I think Abby said to her when they had their contretemps, Abby said, "I don't even think you like me, let alone love me," and I think and
Polly agrees.
Polly actually, I think that hit home for Polly.
Yeah.
And so she speaks to Jan, asking Jan to ask Leo to ask Abby what's going on and then feed that back to Jan. It's like Chinese whispers. Right?
Yeah. But Polly admits to Jan that actually she really doesn't like
or know her. And I thought that's quite that's quite.
And then she
sad.
finishes up the scene in typical Polly fashion by rubbing up against
Ken
Masters.
Being very flirty, girl.
Rubbing up against his polyester slacks. Always a risky thing with man-made fabrics.
Yeah, and I think this is probably the last episode in the series where Polly has more outfit changes than Jan. Because I think Polly had some very unusual outfits. This one, she had a furry jumper when she was at the yacht club having a drink on her own.
Yeah,
and that's when she realised.
I'm surprised there wasn't a cloud of fluff following her around.
Yeah, she was there with a dustbuster. So she gets dustbusted when she leaves the house, when she wears that sort of fluffy jumper. It's sort of a Yeti style, wasn't it? But she carried it off with such panache. It was very lovely. And then she finds out from Lynn, when Lynn gives her the pressed and laundered clothes of Abby after she went sploshing sort of into the harbour. So she now realises what's happened. But yeah. So and we see another scene with. So further on down the line, there's some sort of very glamorous party.
Yeah, well, this is really interesting. This is really interesting because Tom turns up at, Kate's just started to make dinner. Still no heat under that pan. I just don't know how any food gets cooked.
And she can't grate cheese to save
her life. But Tom turns up and says, "Hey everybody, we are going to a hog roast."
Every time I think of hog roast, I always think like a bit homespun, sort of.
Well, this wasn't a homespun.
No, this was like a full-on regatta.
And everybody's smiling and
wearing finery,
happy. I mean, I'm talking, when Tom announces it.
Yeah.
Then it's almost like feels like he's trying to
jolly things
up and perhaps brings some camaraderie back into the...
And it does work. And sort of, Kate said, "Oh, well, I'll be going." No, you can come. I've got nothing to wear. We'll just take your pinny off.
Yeah, take your pinny off.
Rather than Jan offering a blouse or something like that, she said, "You can wear some jewellery. Just drip some jewellery over your slacks, love." But that party looked epic.
Well, this was the first pool party, really, that we've had in this series. The first of some very chilly looking pool parties with people in their bathing costume with nipples like chapel hat pegs. And I'm sure there's health and safety. As soon as the director shouts "cut," they come running on with foil blankets.
with a range of the Howards where you knitted cardigans.
It'll be like the end of the London Marathon.
the tinfoil blankets.
Yeah.
But in fairness, the party did look really good, and they had
some great dancing going on under that gazebo.
A gazebo with lights and hog roast. They had chefs. It wasn't everything. I think a hog roast. I mean, you just think some sort of.
It wasn't a disposable barbecue and some Linda McCartney vegetarian sausages.
No, crikey! No. It was like there was virtually a sort of a carved ice swan or something.
Practically.
But they also had.
Then we had Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
And then you had some licensing, wasn't it? Was it like not Addicted to Love, but it was that.
Yeah. They spent some of the budget, obviously, on some music licensing.
Was it Addicted to Love? It was.
I can't remember.
Yeah. So it's. The only really glamorous party I can remember us going to was that one in Thailand where you saw a supermodel on the toilet.
Yes.
She was the drummer in Addicted to Love, wasn't she?
Yeah. Perhaps it's best not to be quite so specific about who you're talking about. For legal reasons.
For legal reasons. Oops. Yes, our glitterati lifestyle. But no, that party looked fabulous. It was really, really good, and everyone seems to be having a really jolly time. Tom's then chatting up some sort of businessman that gives advice who's big in yachting and stuff.
He's big in boats.
He's big in boats.
Because Tom's been having ideas, because earlier we see him sniffing around looking at yachts, and he should have had a conversation with Avril that he's trying to work out where the gap in the market is. Because he wants the Mermaid Yard, quite rightly, to be a success,
and
whereas Jack's quite happy for it just to
continue
to potter along, losing money hand over fist.
Yeah, so
but he burns through his partners'
cash. Yeah, so. But Avril makes a sort of a very astute announcement that the bank will not lend any more money. So the $100,000 that's gone into invest.
That's it.
And that's paid off some of the debts with the bank. And the bank's not going to extend it back up. So they need to do something. And so Tom is there thinking of ideas. And obviously he's designed the flying fish.
So we're led to believe.
Stroke laser.
Yes. It did have a very noticeable laser thing on it when it was lifted out of the water in the first episode. We didn't comment on it then.
No, because we've got to go along with the whole thing.
Yeah, got to suspend your disbelief.
Admittedly, I have been on eBay. I've been banned. We've been banned for any large purchase on eBay. But this week I have been on eBay looking at that yacht type. I haven't pressed buy it now.
Good.
Thank goodness.
Good.
Rob would be very upset.
I'd be very upset, given that we live in one of the landlocked counties of England.
It looked lovely on the drive.
We'll put it on the canal.
Yes, I don't think
the Shropshire Union Canal.
Yes. So it would compete with next door's silly orange Jaguar that rattles the windows every time it starts. So he's come up with this idea for this yacht, and then they're discussing it. And obviously, I've been looking a little bit into yachts at the moment.
Clearly,
and
you've been looking at eBay anyway.
But the yacht that the Flying Fish was a 28-foot or 27-foot one, and he's talking about a 45-foot one. That's massive. That's a really big yacht. But I suppose,
Sounds it.
But a 27-foot is enough to have sort of it's like 4 berth in there, and maybe 6 if you sort of turn the dining table into another berth. But it's 45 foot is huge. But I suppose it's good for it's good to have size. Size matters.
Yeah, it sounds like a right party boat.
It
That does.
it's like a champagne cruiser.
Yeah. And if the market he's looking at is the weekenders, then with money,
But they want something big to
They
impress,
want
I suppose,
something
and
big.
to invite the friends down.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I suppose that there is that. So anyway, he has a chat with this other person. Kate and Jan have a little sort of tete-a-tete.
a heart to heart.
Which is really quite sweet, because and then Kate actually admits she may have been wrong to convince her to take the job, because obviously she's now seen how Tom's reacted, and I think she's got a soft spot for Tom, and I think that's really nice. It's that she's very motherly towards. Well, she's a very good mum to Jan, but she's also very motherly to Tom.
She's very mumsy.
She is. She's brilliant. She steals every scene. And so they have a little conversation there. Lynn is being chatted up by Anthony Head, who looks very debonair and lovely. This was before his Buffy period. And Lynn asked to be considered as one of his crew for the Fastnet.
Yeah.
So he suggests that they go out on his yacht.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Rob busy Googles Fastnet.
It's the race.
I've never pretended to know anything about yachtiness.
But Anthony Head's. I mean, there's a very so we sort of they have a swimming pool. There's around the swimming pool, and obviously someone sort of falls into the swimming pool.
I think someone is.
It's always
it's all hijinks.
Well, there's always a part. I mean, Abby sort of summarised it quite well in episode 2, where she said, "Well, it's all parties around a swimming pool where everyone falls into the swimming pool eventually, fully clothed." And yep, that happens.
So meanwhile, Leo and Abby are having a lovely afternoon.
Yeah, well, Abby goes over, and because Abby is obviously a little bit dour and depressing a little bit, but Abby actually goes to Leo rather than Leo go to Abby.
Yeah.
And so, have you got some time? And they go off on the motorbike and they go to some really nice quiet place. It looked gorgeous, didn't it?
Some kind of riverbank.
Riverbank somewhere.
Yeah.
And Leo's sort of allowing her to talk, and you can see that there's a starting of something there. And I think she's in her own pity party routine.
Yeah.
But
she's talking about her father. The absent Gerald.
And in 2 years has spent 17 hours together. That must have been a really fun Christmas.
Well, I suppose one of those was spent in Switzerland. Wasn't it?
Yeah. She must have. I wonder if she made it up. I mean, for Christ's sake, if my parental unit, if I'd spent 17 hours in 2 years, that would have been fabulous. So
that'd be record breaking.
That would be record breaking.
Yeah. But also, we have a little hint of plot yet to come when Abby starts talking about her father and starts to wonder.
Don't even know if he's my father.
Yeah, I don't know where that's going to lead.
No,
no.
So, which is all very, very intriguing. I'm now super intrigued to meet Gerald, because Polly is just gorgeous. Such a gorgeous
What's Gerald
creature.
going to be like? Is he going to be fabulous and interesting like Polly, or is he going to be dull and grey like Abby?
I know. Yes. Who knows?
Who knows?
That's probably next. I think that's next week's episode.
You said that last week.
I know.
And we're still
I could have sworn he came up in this episode. I mean, there's 13 episodes. We've only met a little bit of the cast. I mean, I am enjoying that sort of we get the character and the dynamics coming before other characters. It's a multi-layered thing, which I really quite like. Where nowadays, so you pretty much it's like boom, 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 boom. And then you meet everybody and you're like, "Ooh, who's this? Who's that?" And then you eventually sort of level it out. But this one, you eased into it. And I quite like that. And Abby says something really lovely to Leo. He said, "Well, you don't say much." And I said, "Well, I didn't feel that I needed to." And I thought that was really sweet. And it's allowing...
it brought a tear to
she's really good. She's a really, really good actress. And she didn't really do a great deal after this. But I mean, because she was also in Tenko, wasn't she?
Yeah, I think Tenko was before.
Yeah, Tenko was before, and then she did this.
Where she had a sweaty vest. Well, they all had sweaty vests.
Well, it's very sweaty out there, wasn't it? So, but yeah, so they have a lovely, lovely time. She's crying a little bit, so she hasn't made her big announcement yet.
Spoilers, sweetie.
Spoilers. And then we have a nice little scene, which seemed a bit of a pointless scene with Lynn and the Anthony Head. I think it was Giles. No.
No,
Giles
not.
was the name of
Buffy
the
Vampire Slayer.
Oops.
Yeah.
So they have so you see her sailing and doing sailor-like things with crankshafts and sailing gloves and everything.
Crankshafts?
Well, it's the crank thing that gets the sailory bits sorted.
Okay.
The winches and stuff.
Well,
the winch handle.
Clearly I'm in the presence of an expert.
Well, obviously, if I get my own flying fish, then you'll be crankshafting away and mainsail and spinnaker and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, you'll be on your own with that one, mate.
But the boat has an unfortunate name, the Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit strange.
Who would name their boat Mickey Mouse?
Yeah. I mean, the Donald Duck, I can get on board with that. Pardon the pun, but the Mickey Mouse,
it just, she's doing all this like energetic sailing, I think, and the boat is moving. Oh yes, let's do this and that, and la 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 la.
But like, isn't this sort of setting up for the whole Fastnet thing?
Well, no, but she doesn't. Well, we're not spoilers.
Yeah, but that's kind of what seems to be going on here. That she's trying to engage his enthusiasm.
She's showing off
for her to be crewing in his
she's showing off her knowledge and everything, and he's admiring her.
He's admiring her.
She's realised that he's admiring her, but not necessarily for her sailing skills.
No, not necessarily.
Because Lynn is super, super attractive. But she's very focused on boats, which I think is great, fabulous. And then we have another contretemps. Dun, dun, dun. The episode ends.
Well, we missed a bit.
Have we? What was a bit?
Yeah, well, we missed the interesting denouement to the party.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh
yes.
yeah. Well, Polly makes a beeline again for Tom at the party, and Tom actually says something. Not again, Polly. Not now. As if like, well, maybe we'll do it another time. Which I don't think that was meant. I don't think that was meant.
Yeah. I don't think that's what he meant.
Jan had the little heart to heart with Kate, and Tom says, "I'm not really into parties. So I think you've got the car keys if you can." Well, so when you're
make your own way home, love.
And then I'll walk, and he walks off, and then Jan sort of runs after him and gives him a hug and gives him a kiss
on the cheek, and then
Polly makes some snide mark.
Well, no, but what happens then is that Tom has his hands on her waist, which she removes.
Oh.
Removes his hands from her waist and walks away. And that's why Polly says what she says.
That's a parting.
That's someone who's made up their mind to go their own way or something like that.
Yeah, it really hit the mark. And then we have the final scene, which is the dun dun dun,
dun, dun, dun.
Where Tom announces he brings out some drawings of a boat. I'm glad there were actually technical drawings and it wasn't just of a picture. I don't have visions of it, like a child's drawing of a boat with the sails up, coloured in the lines and everything. But it was actually it was like a proper technical drawing of a boat. Because I said when in sort of later episodes when they see them designing on the BBC computer.
Well, yeah, I think we'll have lots to say about the computerization of the Mermaid Yard.
And basically, Tom is like, we want to build a boat, and say, well, Jack said, oh, that's what we do, in all his gruffness, and shows him the boat. Oh, we can't make that out of wood. And Tom says,
well, we're not going to make it out of wood.
And then he goes really, really super strop.
Yes, and then expects Avril
to back him up. And she doesn't.
Dun, dun, dun.
Gosh.
Gosh.
Yes. Yeah, Averill's being pushed into the allegiance with Tom
Yes.
in more than one way.
Ooh.
So, I really like the episode, but although we have discussed about quite a lot, not a lot happens. You could have probably quite have done this episode in about 15 minutes with a bigger story arc.
Well, I don't know. I kind of disagree, because an episode like that, to me, would have felt long. And this didn't feel like a long episode.
Well, the scripting is brilliant.
I think there was plenty going on.
There's plenty to keep yourself occupied
in this episode. One thing we haven't mentioned is Tom's continued stalking of the purchaser of the flying
yes, I mean,
fish.
because that was a bit of a cliffhanger, wasn't it? When he arrives at last week's episode, and it's sort of the James Devereux
Devereux household.
He drops in a couple of things, and
he's on the phone trying to track him down. And I mean, why is he so obsessed?
Why is he so bothered? But
why is he so obsessed?
I think he's probably just intrigued who's bought the boat.
Well, clearly he is. And I can understand he did build the boat in inverted commas.
Yeah.
And I suppose he would be interested in making sure that whoever's bought it is being nice to it.
Yeah.
Even though it's still moored in
but he asked Averill, and Averill's a quote. She's very good, Averill. Very, very good.
She's very good.
She's very
She's
good.
sneaky but good.
She's sneaky but good. So I think maybe that storyline might come to a head next week, and hopefully next week we will meet Gerald.
Let's hope so.
Ooh.
Let's hope so.
So overall, I like the episode, but so we didn't seem to have an overreaching story arc of the individual episode, but it was the start and. We're not conclusion or sort of establishing of characters. I mean, I could watch sort of Kate doing anything, even grating cheese. She does that with such panache.
Yes.
Even though she can't grate cheese.
Isn't there a special module at the radar on cheese grating?
Cheese grating. She obviously missed that one. She went out for a gin and tonic. So we get into the episode, part of this episode where we do the reboot recasting.
Yes. So who is it this week, Jonathan?
Jack Rolfe.
Ooh.
Now, who do you think?
Who do I think? This is going to be controversial.
I'll go.
I would cast Sean Bean.
Sean Bean?
Sean Bean.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. Sean Bean.
That's actually a good one. That is good, because
you don't sound quite so surprised.
No, that is really good, because I was thinking about Clive Owen. I know he's a bit posh, but he can do accents. And he's got that sort of. He looks great in a sweater.
Yeah, I can see Clive Owen.
Yeah,
but I can see Sean Bean as well.
I could, yeah, because I think Sean Bean's really good because he's got that northern thing going on for him.
Yeah, he's got that kind of gruffness that would.
He looks. He can look elegant, and he knows how. He knows.
He scrubs up well,
and yet he's still.
And the dab hand with the bow and arrow.
Ooh, yes, I like that one. I really do. Oh yeah, because I was thinking Clive Owen, but I think he's maybe thinking on it. He may be a little bit too posh, perhaps. Or alternatively, what was that chap that was in Life on Mars?
Philip Glenister.
Philip Glenister.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, because he's got that sort of. He can scrub up well, and yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh gosh.
But
I think both. Yeah. All three would be.
Yeah. But actually, what I think we'll find is that as we continue with this, is that the older characters will probably be easier for us to cast
than the younger
ones.
Well, I've already got. So next week we'll do Leo Howard, and I think that's a foregone conclusion. Who are we going to pick for that?
For you,
yeah. Ooh.
Not for me.
Ooh.
I know who you're going to suggest. and I'm going to disagree. Controversy.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow.
So, anyway, dear
Anyway.
listeners, we have wittered on about the glorious episode 4 of Series 1 of Howard's Way.
For quite long enough.
For quite long enough. I hope you have enjoyed it. We do a tweet along of this of the episodes.
We do, don't we do?
Every Sunday at 8 p.m. You jam in your DVD and let rip with all your comments. Remember to use the hashtag, only on Twitter, or hashtag of Howard's Way.
All one word.
All one word. The podcast drops every Sunday. You can find us on all social media platforms at Antique Dust. It's Howard's Way nonsense and just general nonsense on the social media feeds. That's what social media is all for. It's
Nonsense.
Nothing too serious. And we also put the podcast on YouTube as well. So if you want to stick that on the background, which lots of people do, stick it on and you can listen to the podcast on YouTube at Antique Dust. So in the meantime, it's farewell from me, Jonathan.
And it's goodbye from me, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Howard's Way podcast from Antique Dust.